Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Rachel and I am knitting. Not right now, but most of the time. And I have been knitting. Today's video is episode 6 of my weekly podcast and let's just get into it. Okay, so I have some things to update you on. I think that this might be a shorter episode, but I think that often, and each time I've thought that, I have been incorrect. So we'll see what we get to. I have my notes for today's episode here in my knitting journal. If you're new here, I do a weekly podcast. This is the 6th installment, so it's by no means, you know, like a well-oiled machine. Still learning what to do, still getting the hang of it, but it's a knitting podcast. I talk about knitting and a bunch of other things that float through my head, my intrusive thoughts, etc. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to start with project updates as usual, and you may notice that I've got one. I've got an update for you, and it's on my Lumme sweater. This is the Lumme sweater. Pardon my chair creaking. This is the Lumme sweater by Sari Nordlund, and it's done. It's on my body. I have some thoughts about this pattern that I will share in a finished object diary video, which is my series where I kind of unpack my process of knitting or making a pattern, whether that's crochet or maybe one day sewing. I don't know. Mostly it's knitting. It's only been knitting so far. One of the things, or two things that I'll tell you ahead of time, 3 things. Okay, 3 things. The first is that the sleeves are a little long. I knit them a little too long, and you can see I have the sleeves folded, so the ribbing is just like shorter, and that means that the ends that I wove in to be on the inside of the ribbing are not. So I need to decide if I want to keep this as is and just fold the sleeves, the ribbing, to mitigate the extra length, the excess length, or if I want to, you know, alter the sleeves, modify them so I no longer have to roll them. But I think these look fine rolled up. And you know what, honestly, the end, these 2 tiny little ends, I just really don't care at all. So maybe that just made the decision for me. So that's the first thing I want to tell you about it. The next thing is that the neckline is a little droopy, so I'm considering either adding a crochet reinforcement or stringing elastic thread along the collar so it's a little cinched up, because it just bothers me when you can see my shirt under my sweater. Like, I want you to think there's nothing under there. I don't even have a body under there. You don't know what's under there. Skin, flesh, shirt, it's all a mystery. So I don't really love that you can see my shirt, okay? So those are things that I'm considering changing or altering. The third thing that I want to tell you about this pattern is I like it. I really like how it turned out. I made it to be a bit more oversized than I typically wear. I'll cut in a clip of me, and you can like see me standing up in it, because if I stand up now, the chair's gonna creak, I'm gonna knock over my tripod, it's gonna be a whole thing. So I'll just film it separately after I am done speaking to the camera, and I'll put that clip in here now. Alright, wonderful. We can all agree that it is gorgeous. I'm very happy with how it turned out. I would consider making this again. Typically I have less ease in the sweaters that I make for myself, so I'm curious how I would like the fit of a smaller size. I made the largest size of this pattern because I substituted a DK weight yarn instead of using the worsted weight yarn that the pattern calls for. So according to my gauge, I wanted to make the largest size to account for the positive ease that I was going for, and it all worked out in the end. So keep an eye out for my finished object diary video going over my thoughts on the Lumme. There are some issues with the pattern that I had to navigate and obstacles I had to overcome, like a phoenix rising from the ashes, that I will unpack in the finished object diary video. So like I said, keep an eye out for that. There's an update on my Lumme. I cast this on January 30th and I cast it off on March 14th. So about like almost exactly a month and a half worked on this pattern, and I'm very pleased that it is now a wearable item added to my wardrobe, especially because it's purple. I don't know if you know this about me, but I love purple. I don't know why. I don't know how. I love purple. Okay, so there's the update on my Lumme. The next update that I want to give you is on a knit along that I'm working on. A few weeks ago, I showed you my yarn that I got from EweKnitCo Toronto. This is Gepard. What is this? Yes, I'm knitting this up in Gepard Wild and Soft and Gepard Kid Seta. The Wild and Soft is a fingering weight base, and the Kid Seta is a lace weight base. This is a silk mohair blend, and I'm holding them together to make the Azucena knit along, or the Azucena sweater, Azucena pullover. But anyway, Claudia Quintanilla of EweKnitCo Toronto, they are hosting a knit along and they sent me the yarn to participate with. So I've been working on that. This is how far I am. In many ways, it's the inverse of the sweater I'm wearing, or at least it looks that way now, but it actually will look similar to the color scheme of the color of the sweater I'm wearing, because just like the Lumme, oh, look at that. Just like the Lumme, the Azucena, I'm going slowly so I don't drop stitches. Just like the Lumme, the Azucena is going to have this darker purple be my main color, and the lighter purple be my contrast color. So it looks very, you know, heavy on the light color right now, but as I continue knitting the yoke, you'll see that the main color becomes much more dominant in terms of, you know, the surface area that takes up the sweater. So I'm making good progress on that. I've been kind of battling some dry skin on my hands. You may have seen it in the last video. You may see it in this video as I hold things up to the camera. I'm not just gonna have a dedicated shot of my dry hands because, you know, I'm not doing that. But I have been having some issues with dry hands. This happens every time I come back to Oregon. It's like my skin is just shocked by the dryness and my hands just peel. This happened when I lived here full time, but it is like exacerbated when I come back from Louisiana, because the air is so you know, wet and moisture heavy in Louisiana due to the humidity, whereas in Oregon that's not the same level of humidity, it's not the same situation. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is I have dry hands right now, and oh, it's just horrible to be knitting with mohair with dry peeling hands, because every piece of dry skin just catches on the halo of the mohair fibers, and you know, normally they're just lovely. They're just lovely to look at and to behold, and you know, sometimes to accidentally inhale or ingest, you know, comes with the territory of knitting with mohair or a fluffy lace weight. But when you also have dry hands, it's just not the greatest. So I am not knitting on that as quickly as I would if my hands were not having this issue, but I'm still making steady progress. So I'm happy with that. I plan to get a few rows in today after I film this podcast, but that's my progress. I cast that on, let's see here. I think that I cast it on a few weeks ago. Like, I think I already showed it. Yeah, I did show it in a podcast already, but I hadn't gotten to the color work yet. Yeah, because the last time I showed it to you, I had finished the short rows, and so it was on hold, and now I've done about an inch of the color work chart So there's the progress on the Azucena. The next project that I want to update you on is a finished object. This is an Oslo hat, and I'm tempted to put it on for you so you can see what it looks like as a hat. But this hat is not for me. This hat is for Jane. If you don't know, Jane is our tour guide from the Irish Knitting Tour. She took such good care of us this past October on the first ever Rachel is Knitting and Misadventure Irish Knitting Tour. Misadventure is my mom's handle. We plan the trip together and we host it together. So Jane was our tour guide. She took us, you know, on a wild ride throughout Ireland. She told us all about the Anglo-Normans, all about the NRA, all about the Georgian architecture of Dublin, and so much more. She's a wonderful, wonderful woman, and she's going to be our tour guide for this year's trip, which, by the way, we have one knitting spot left, and we have room for a few more non-knitters. So, you know, if you're wanting to go, there's only room for one more knitter and a few more non-knitters. So, anyway, Jane, I will be seeing her again in October, and I've been meaning to make her a hat. And this is the hat that I showed you in last week's episode because I had cast it on to work on at the Rose City Yarn Crawl. I almost said Yo's City Yarn, whatever. The Rose City Yarn Crawl. Okay, so I cast this on, and then the Rose City Yarn Crawl came and went. I made a little bit of progress. Since then I finished, but about halfway through I was like, who should I make this hat for? Because I already have 3 Oslo hats for myself. I live in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I don't wear hats that often. So, you know, not to say I won't continue making myself hats, but I don't need another Oslo hat. At least I don't feel like I need it right now. So I was like, okay, I need to give someone this hat. It's not gonna stay with me. And then the light bulb went off and I knew this had to be for Jane, because not only did I want to make Jane a hat anyway, but Jane is a purple girl and a pink girl. She wore a lot of purple and pink on the trip. So I think this might be, I'm kind of afraid this might be a little big for Jane, but that will just, you know, I hope that she likes it. I hope that it works and that it doesn't fall off her head. I think it will be fine. But I knit this holding one strand of Gen Z purple from Kimber's Cozy Creations and one strand of A Beautiful Woman Who Cannot Dance, It Seems a Crime Against Nature from Through the Wardrobe Yarn Crawl Co. I keep saying Yarn Crawl. Through the Wardrobe Yarn Co. from her Bridgerton collection. Both of these skeins were sent to me by their respective dyers to use for promo, so it all worked out pretty well, and I think it made a really fabulous and beautiful product, and I'm very excited to give that to Jane. So that's something that I completed this week. The Lumme I completed, the Oslo Hat I completed. I made good progress on the Azucena, and I'll continue to do so. The next thing that I want to show you is a new project that I didn't anticipate. This is a baby blanket that I cast on. This is knit with loops and threads, like some specialty baby line. There's like little bits of fluff in there that are like confetti almost. It's not very noticeable on this colorway, but there were other colors at the store that was like a purple base color with like light pink confetti speckles. The confetti speckles on this are blue. So it's like a light pink yarn with really, really light blue confetti speckles. It kind of looks like micro stripes from far away, but they are like little pieces of fluff. So I got 2 skeins of this and I cast it on. I'm almost done with the first skein, and I want to give this to my cousin who's expecting. So I'm hoping that I can finish that in time for her baby shower, which is actually on Sunday, so a week from yesterday. So I really need to get going. I have this much left of the first skein, so I think that this will be a good size baby blanket. Double this width, double this part, plus a little more. I think that'll be fine. A nice little baby lap blanket. So I cast that on Saturday. Today's Monday, and I've made really good progress. It's just flat stockinette stitch, so knitting every round, or excuse me, flat garter stitch. So it's knitting every round, and that's what creates these garter ridges. Some of you probably are watching and thinking, no duh, Rachel, we know that. Well, guess what? You know, not everybody knows everything. And I want this podcast to be an accessible point of entry for makers of all skill levels. So you can just put that in your garden and water it, okay? All right. All right, so that's the update on my baby blanket. The next thing that I need to update you on, I forgot to bring down with me, and it's my purse project. So I'm going to enter a clip into here, or cut a clip into here, and show you, remind you of my purse project while I continue to talk about it. So listen to the dulcet tones of my soothing voice while I tell you about this purse project. I have made very good progress. I have about 15 or so, 15 to 17 grams left of this skein. And in the pattern, it says to continue in the pattern until you have 8 to 10 grams left. So I'm working diligently on that so I can get to the decreases, finish this up, block it, and give it to my grandmother while I'm still in Oregon. So I'm hoping that I can finish that this week. If not this week, then the following week. And that is the update on the purse project. All right, believe it or not, that's all the updates I have on what I knit on this week. I think that probably my Lumme, I keep doing this because the sleeves are what I finished this week. Probably my Lumme is what took up most of my knitting bandwidth, in addition to the Oslo Hat, finishing that, and, you know, making such substantial progress on that surprise baby blanket. It's a surprise to me because I didn't realize, you know, the baby shower just kind of snuck up on me as they do. All right, now that I've updated you on my projects, I'm going to transition into the acquisition section of the podcast. Now, if you hate acquisition sections of podcasts, you'll be thrilled to know this one only has 2 things, and none of them are yarn, okay? If you love acquisitions and you love to see new yarn, I'm so sorry, I can't help you. At least not this week. But I did get 2 things. Well, I guess I also got the yarn for this. So I did get yarn, but I told you about it, okay? Anyway, I did get 2 things. And the first was this stick and stitch paper. I've never used this before, but I've heard about it and seen it and been interested in it. Basically what it is it's an adhesive paper that you can either draw or print designs on. So for instance, you can see on the label or on the product itself, there are these flowers. So basically what this is you have the design drawn, and then you use it as the outline by which you embroider the design onto your fabric. It's water soluble, so you have the design, you stick it on the fabric you want to embroider, you embroider the design based on the lines provided, and then you dunk it in water and the sticky fabric outline paper washes away, leaving your embroidered design. So you can get these on Etsy with pre-designed images like flower motifs or nice lettering, or, you know, I've even seen little sheep or scarves or hats or sweaters. Basically a cute little picture to guide your embroidery so you don't have to freehand. I've never embroidered before, so I know that I want this guide. Now, the reason that I purchased this, you may remember in last week's episode, during the acquisition section, I showed you the contents of the Twice Sheared Sheep Spring Surprise box. And you may remember also that I was not thrilled with 2 items in the box due to the verbiage that was on them. So this tote bag was one of those items, and I really don't like this word crazy. And I want to also clarify, like, this is a word that has, you know, it's part of our dialect, for better or worse. So I hope you don't think that, you know, if you say, oh, that's crazy, you know, I'm like, shame on you, how dare you? Like, I do that too. I have slips of the tongue and say things that, you know, I think I should reevaluate and interrogate. But to have it screen printed on a bag is just, like, to me, that's not a flippant slip of the tongue. That's like an active choice, a permanent thing. So I just don't want to use this bag as is. But I do want to use this bag as will be. And I plan to use my new stick and stitch paper to embroider either like fun yarn themes, like maybe a skein of yarn, maybe a sweater, maybe a hat, maybe a sheep, maybe flowers. I don't know. I'm gonna decide. I think I'm gonna use Canva to get some cool designs to print out on my stick and stitch paper. And then I will embroider over this word, but leave the yarn lady words, because I am a yarn lady. I realize not everyone is a yarn lady who buys yarn, or even who got this bag. And I would encourage you to reach out to Twice-Sheared Sheep about that. I reached out about this and I voiced my concern. Okay, so long story short, that's my first acquisition, which is this sticky paper to deal with this bag that I want to use, but just in its altered state. And then the second acquisition is I got some sharp tapestry needles, which of course I have no idea where I put, but they're somewhere in this house. Some sharp tapestry needles that are thicker than the typical needles I use for cross stitch. So they're sturdier and they should be able to puncture this fabric without breaking, whereas my normal like sewing needle or cross stitch needle I don't think would stand up to the thickness of this bag. So those are the two acquisitions I got with this specific project in mind, and I will take you along for the process whenever I get to that. I'm thinking I'll get to this in April. I'm not sure if I said that already, but that's my plan, and we'll see how it goes. I also think that it's a really fun idea to just play around with the stick and stitch paper and see what else I want to stick it on. like wouldn't it be fun to stick and stitch a project bag with like a pretty little flower motif, or just like a stick and stitch motif of a sweater, and you put it on a project bag that you have a sweater whip in, or stick and stitch a hat and put that on the project bag for hats, socks, etc. So cute. I think that's a great idea. You know, I'm just full of them. What I'm not full of is the time to do all the ideas I have. So it's a constant struggle. But those are the only two acquisitions I had. So we can move on to the next section of the podcast, which normally would be announcements, I guess. So I'll tell you my one announcement, which is the Irish Knitting Tour, like I mentioned, has one spot for knitters left. So let me just take a moment to break down the Irish Knitting Tour. Like I've said in previous videos, some of you have been here for a while. You are so supportive of me. You watch my videos, you follow me on Instagram, you know everything that's going on. So this is going to be old hat for you. It's not going to be interesting for you. You know, you can recite this better than I can at this point. But for those of you who are not aware, I don't want you to miss out on the opportunity just because I feel anxious about people feeling like I am being redundant, you know? So I'm just gonna tell you. Okay, so let's talk about it. The Irish Knitting Tour is a 9-night tour all over Ireland. We start in Dublin, we go to Dun Laoghaire, we go to County Cavan, we go to Kilkenny, we go to Cork, we go to Killarney, and we end in Shannon, and we fly out of the Shannon airport to our homes, you know, near and far. While we are together in Ireland, we are shepherded through the Emerald Isle on a private coach. We are shepherded not only on a private coach, but by a skilled and qualified driver who navigates the Irish country roads so we don't have to. All we have to do is look out the window, talk to our friends, take a nap, and knit to our heart's content. It's amazing. It is the most elite passenger princess experience ever. Okay, so we're shepherded through the Irish countryside. We have knitting workshops led by experts, including a workshop on Mobius knitting by Lisa Sisk, who is the owner and proprietor of This Is Knit, Dublin's premier local yarn store. Speaking of This Is Knit, we'll have a private shopping experience there the first day of the tour. We also have a workshop with Liz Spillane where we'll learn how to make art yarn. We'll have a workshop with Carol Feller where we'll learn how to navigate garment construction and reading cable charts. We have a workshop with Ava Nee, a Tunisian crochet designer, so we'll have some practice and some introduction to Tunisian crochet. We'll be visiting a working Irish sheep farm, 2 working Irish woolen mills, and more. Historical sites like Christchurch Cathedral, Rock of Cashel. We'll be going to Cliffs of Moher. We'll be going to a ceramic studio that makes the most beautiful hand-painted fuchsia pottery. So, you know, it's my tour and I decided what we're doing, so I said, we're doing that. Okay, sorry. If you don't want to go to a ceramic tour, you can plan your own. All right, so that's that. The Irish Knitting Tour promises to be very exciting, very fun. I can't wait for it, truly. I'm really excited. It was so fun last year. I know that this year is just going to be so much fun too, and we've improved a lot of things. We've taken feedback from our first tour to make sure it's an even better, more unforgettable, and more enjoyable experience. So I'm really excited for October. 1 knitting spot left, and we have 4 non-knitting spots left, to put a number to it. I know I say a few usually, but we have 4 left, non-knitters, 1 left for knitters. So if you're wanting to join us, click the link in the video description to get all the info about itinerary, cost, travel insurance, how to book, etc. Because once that spot for the knitter is full, it's full and you'll just have to wait for the next one. So there's my plug for the Irish Knitting Tour. I'm trying to think what else I wanted to update you on. I don't think anything. I do have plans for some knitting tonight. After I'm done filming this, I'm gonna go work on the baby blanket to make good progress because again, the deadline is looming. Okay, so maybe this was the very first actual short and sweet podcast. I don't know, we'll see how long it gets after I'm done editing. Like I said, stay tuned for my finished object diary going over the Lumme sweater. I'm excited to share that with you. I won't be making a finished object diary for this Oslo hat, so if you have questions on it, go ahead and leave them in the comments on this video, and I'll also pop a link to the finished object diary video I did do on my Oslo Hat mohair edition. So if you have questions about the Oslo Hat, you can check out that video and maybe it will be of assistance for you in navigating that. But yep, that's all I have. I hope that you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you don't already, and hit that notification bell to be notified of my next upload. Last but not least, head over to Instagram and follow me at Rachel Is Knitting if you don't already. Okay, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.